Welcome back to another reading and correcting of Stepping Up by me, Kindar, the Tiger Rights, and I, Tiger Super. Today, we are doing chapter 25. Did you know? Jekyll yelled at Harry as he stormed into the guard leader? Oh, right. The guard leader is Uncle's office. Tibs didn't want to be here, but Jekyll had insisted. Other than breaking one of Harry's rule and hoping he'd be dragged to his office instead of thrown in a cell, Tibs was the only Jekyll. Only way Jekyll could think of being allowed beyond the training room and onto the floors where those in charge had their offices. Tibs hadn't expected to work, hadn't wanted it, even if he wanted to help his friend, but helping Harry had come at the cost of more special treatment. The guard leader's expression darkened as he looked up from what he was reading. Of course I do. He turned the look on Tibs, who crossed his arm and stared back. Maybe helping Jekyll get in would finally get them to stop. Stop it. Stop it. Maybe helping Jekyll get in would finally get them to stop it with a special treatment. Then what? Oh, wow. Then what haven't you? Why? Then why haven't you thrown his ass out of here? Jekyll demanded, stepping to the desk. Tibs told Jekyll about his father's visit as soon as he and Crosset returned from their them. He almost hadn't. He and Crosset had looked so happy, arms around each other's waist, and Jekyll nuzzling and whispering things to the server that had him blush. It was sickening, but in a good way. But Jekyll needed to know, and his friend wouldn't thank him for more delight. The change had been immediate. Disbelief, fear, and then anger. Because my brother hasn't broken any of my rules. You know, how the bleep did I get so many of them? Once in a while I'm usually expecting, but this is 2 in a row. You know why he's here? See you. Bullshit. Jekyll spat. He wants the guild. Just... man. What was it with that day when I wrote? Just like the one before him. The one that got you here. Harry shook his head. He has no interest in the guild or the dungeon. He stated. I asked him. He added, voice hard, as Jekyll opened his mouth. And you believed him? Jekyll asked in disbelief. Careful what you're implying, Jackie boy. I'm not implying a fucking thing. I'm telling you, you're an idiot for believing anything my father says. I am light, Jekyll said through clenched teeth as he got to his feet. No one gets away with lying to me. If there's one person who'd find a way, it's him. Jekyll snapped back. No one. Harry growled. Jekyll, he said, grabbing the fighter's arm. This was devolving. Maybe we... How does he even know I'm here? Jekyll yelled, pulling his arm away. My sister told him, didn't she? I didn't. Serva said, stepping into the office. Tibs looked for their dog, but none were there. You're lying, Jekyll said dismissively without turning. She isn't, Harry replied. You think I kept her here because I enjoy having family around? And did you bother keeping her from sending messages to him? Jekyll countered. You know, Jackie, she said with a sigh, I usually find your paranoia amusing. Come on. I'm no happier with Dad being here than you are. Jackie glared at her over his shoulder. Really? Little Miss will do anything to be Daddy's pet. Isn't happy to see him? Tibs stepped between the two as Servo took a step forward. Enough! Harry yelled. The words slammed into Tibs with what felt like physical force. Tibs stared at the guard leader, trying to understand how he'd done that. Light couldn't be solid, could it? The siblings kept glaring at each other silently. I don't need that. Did you come here for another reason than to make my life difficult, Serba? Harry demanded. Saw him storm his way in here, so I figured I should keep an eye on what he was doing. I didn't plan on stepping in until he accused me of being the reason Dad's here. And to make one thing clear, I didn't know he was here until you yelled it for everyone to hear. Unlike you, he didn't bother seeking me out. Chuck rolled his eyes. Then you can go back to your station, Harry said, which you shouldn't have laughed. I'm dealing with Jackie Boy. Uncle? Serba stopped to declare. Sir, as much as I hate to say this, because it means I'm agreeing with him, if my dad's here, there's a plan beyond seeing how much my brother missed him. What the hell? Harry looked from one sibling to the other in exasperation. How is it neither of you think I know my brother? When's the last time you saw him? Jekyll asked without looking away from his sister. Hours ago, when I watched him arrive on the platform and demanded to know why he was here. Before that, obviously, Jekyll said, breaking the staring contest look at Harry. I never saw you visit while I was still had to live there, and my father complained about you often enough. I know you didn't visit him while I wasn't looking, so he was what, my age? Younger the last time you saw him? Harry kept glaring. Do you really think you know the kind of man he became in all those years? Jekyll asked. I know the kind of man who grows up to rule our family, Harry replied darkly. And you still let him into town? He hasn't? Actually, no, this would be because this is about allowing him into town. He hadn't broken my rules, Harry said through clenched teeth. Jekyll sighed, and you think you'll know if he does? I have guards watching him. Jekyll's expression turned to disbelief. You have people watching him, like he isn't already used to that. Do you know how many of the nobility back home tried to insert? How many times tried to insert someone? Do you know how many times the nobility back home tried to insert someone into the household and how quickly they vanished or switched to working for him? And the nobility paid their people extremely well. How much do you pay the guards? Considering how many I recognize from before I was brought here, how many do you think are loyal to him instead of you? He searched his uncle's unreacting face. Come on, tell me you aren't that stupid. Jackie boy, Harry growled. What? Jekyll snapped. My father's in town. You think you can scare me there? He rested his hand on the desk and leaned closer to the guard leader. My father's been here a few hours now. How many guards didn't report for duty? Harry didn't react, but Tibs saw the concern on Serba's face. Harry, Jekyll paused. Uncle, you have to get my father out of here before things turn bad. Harry eyed Jekyll suspiciously. He hasn't broken my rules. Jekyll laughed bitterly. Of course he has. He's here. My father has never followed any rule but his own, and only when those benefit him. Get out, Harry growled. Sir, Serba started. All of you, that's an order. Tibs felt something urge him to the door, as if something inside of him, as if his essence was trying to move him. He exited with Jekyll and Serba, kept watching the now tired-looking guard leader as he dropped into his chair. Harry looked up, saw him, and with a growl there was a flash of light and the door slammed shut. Jackie, Serba said, but the fighter ignored her. Jekyll, she called, and that made him stop and turn. We need to work together. Uncle isn't going to... Fuck up, Serba. I'm not giving you a chance to spy for him. Jekyll turned, missing his sister's darkening expression. Jekyll, he said, once he caught up with him. I think she can. No, she can't. I think she's honest about how she feels about... Jekyll stopped and grabbed his arm. Tibs, I trust 5 people in this town. In the whole fucking world. any more than that, and I'm giving my father an invitation to get into my room, either plant a knife while while I sleep, or steal me to bring me back home. Tibs nodded. He couldn't force Jekyll to let someone else help. As soon as they were outside, Jekyll was looking around in what Tibs suspected the father thought was a discreet manner. Stop it. You're telling everyone watching you're searching for someone. You know what your father looks like. I'll tell you if I see him. Jekyll let out a breath. He isn't who I'm looking for. There's a handful of people my father never travels without. It's one of them I want to spot before they spot me. Then you need to pay better attention, the man said, stepping out of the shadowed alley they were walking by. Tibs reached for his essence, placing a hand on playing a knife on his knife. Even if he recognized him as one of the guard, but unlike the others, while he wore the green and black, he favored black. He was an archer, didn't have essence, and the last time Tibs had noticed him was when he shot a runner trying to escape the town by faking having the bracelet they'd been given. Jekyll had recognized him then, been afraid Tibs would call him out on it. Don't have time for you, Jekyll replied and kept walking. Make the time, Jekyll. Your father's here. The fighter rounded on the archer. I know that. Why haven't you killed him already? Isn't that why the king placed you in his service? The king doesn't do assassination. How do you even know he's who I work for? You'd be amazed who you run into in the pits and what they know. What do you want? Jekyll asked tiredly. Yeah, I didn't do that tired. The archer looked at Tibs. I don't think you want Mr. Lightfingers here for this conversation. Feel free to tell him to leave, Jekyll said, then smirked, and good luck getting him to do it. Tibs crossed his arm over his chest. With an annoyed shake of the head, the man motioned for the alley he'd stepped out of, and Jekyll followed him in. Tibs went along, sensing further for anything out of place. Once they were out of easy hearing range, the archer leaned against the wall. Well, Jekyll asked when the man didn't immediately start speaking. Orders are to help your father bring you back. No, Tibs said. I'm with Tibs. That's not happening. The archer nodded. I've watched you enough to know that. How does the king even know about me? Jekyll asked. I'm just a pit fighter. The archer laughed. That is the least of what you are. As for how he knows, that isn't something I'm privy to. He shrugged. But if I had to guess, I'd say not all the people all the people you met in the pits were there by accident. Jekyll rubbed his face. Please tell me a man like him doesn't believe that story my father made up? I don't know why he's interested in you, Jekyll, and I'm not going to share my suspicions. Jekyll cursed softly. I don't need this. Why is my father here? Don't tell me it's just to bring me home. I'm not that important. Not one of the people your father explains himself to. But I'm guessing you already have ideas. Fine. What are you going to do? Strict minimum I have to say I followed my orders. That means you can't count on me to keep the worst of your problems off your back anymore. What are you talking about? The archer sighed. Your father considers you important, Jekyll. My employer considers you important. Do you think there's anyone back home who isn't aware of that? Jekyll's eyes whitened, and he looked around as if expecting creatures to jump out of the shadows. Who is here? No one you'd know, the archer smiled. But then again, those were never circles you were interested in being part of. He pushed himself from the wall and headed deeper into the alley. Watch his back for me, my fingers. I'm one of the few people who's hoping he'll survive all of this. There's a move to follow him, but Jekyll stopped. Don't. He isn't going to tell you anything more. Maybe he's going to meet with your father? He isn't. Fuck. Jekyll punched the wall. I thought all these people picking fights were just because they were jealous of how awesome I am. He glanced at Tibs, who raised an eyebrow. Not buying it either. There isn't enough coins in the entire town to make me want to. I thought it was the guards who said they came from your city. Oh, there's been plenty of those. But also, just strangers using special Stupid excuses to start fights. Never minded. Now, sighed. Who do they work for? Enemies of my father's, and he has a lot of those. You should ask Kumdar what he knows about him and those fights. Jekyll frowned. Why would he know about those? Darkness-like secret? He said. He wasn't revealing anything the fighter wouldn't have figured out if he paid attention to the cleric. I got him to look into the people into the I got him to look into the ones the people in town have when he was being too curious about you and Karina. You just have to ask, Jekyll said. Tibs started. I'll ask him. In the meantime, Tibs said, I need to teach you how to be more subtle. Jekyll took a step back in surprise. Look at me, Tibs. Nothing can make this subtle. Only because you work so damn hard at getting everyone to notice you. Jekyll grinned with pride, and Tibs couldn't help it. He burst out laughing. Jekyll stiffened his spoon of stew to it. A spoon. Actually, Jekyll stiffened his spoon of stew on his way to his lip, and Tibs raised a hand, looking around and spotting Jekyll's father in the process of roasting. When he had his attention, he raised his tankard and motioned to the table. Tibs had looked around town in the hours since the conversation with the archer, but hadn't found him again before. Anyone looking out of place who might want to kill his friend. There were always strangers, nobles and wealthy people, mainly coming from the platform to visit. So the less respectable ones stood out, but they had been there to see merchants. Sebastian scanned the room, his gaze slowing only twice. A table with guards sitting there, twice at tables sitting with guards sitting there. Kumdar watched Jekyll intently, while Mez and Karina continued eating, unaware anything was wrong. His had hoped they'd have longer before this encounter, that he could find out more. He didn't know if Jekyll had talked with Kumdar. The look could be nothing more than the cleric sensing secrets. Jekyll startled when Korsef placed the tankard on the table, causing the servers to first look at his man, then the direction he'd been looking into, but nothing caught his attention. Hadn't Jekyll told him? This considered this from the library and another Tibs. Tibs considered this when Krosef raised an eyebrow and nodded to the fighter, and shook his head. Even if Tibs thought it was his place to explain, he didn't have the time. He was going to kick Jekyll in the shin for keeping this from Krosef. Jekyll's demeanor shifted as his father approached the table. All signs of worries melted away, replaced with his usual easy smile, and his body relaxed. Tib had seen this act often. Jekyll was good at hiding his worries behind being the brainless buffoon. This time Karina noticed something was off, but before she could ask, Sebastian stood between her and Mez. I guess it was too much to expect your indicated Tibs with a dismissive wave of the hand, whatever he is, to have told you what I was looking for you. No, he did, Jekyll replied. But you've come all this way already. Why make the rest of your journey any easier? He drank while looking the man over. You look like shit. King's making your life hard. Or did you piss off one of your so numerous allies? Again. Karina and Maz turned to look at the man between them, and the archer's behavior immediately changed, responding to how Sebastian was dressed, while Karina studied him. The man was in the same green and black, gold and red trim as when Tibs had seen him earlier in the day. And if his essence moving jewelry radiated light instead of essence, Tibs would be blinded. You now, Sebastian replied. If you'd stayed home like you were supposed to, Jekyll chuckled. That wasn't going to happen. He motioned to the room. This is a happy accident. There were days when I hoped I'd die in the pits, to make sure you'd never bother me again. But you have to make the best of the abyss, of what the abyss hands out, right? Who is this? Karina asked cautiously. This? Jekyll said in a dismissive tone. Oh, the typos. The dismissive tone is the man behind just about every problem to plague the city back home. Would-be noble, master of crime, the silver-tongued Sebastian Wells. He paused, raised a tankard to his lip, then, as if in an afterthought, added, "My father." He then took a long drink. Sebastian's face darkened, and Tibs thought he looked like an older Harry for a second. "You will speak to me with respect, boy. If you want to address me with respect," Jekyll said, "you're going to have to go away and never come back." He paused in the process of taking another sip. "No, not going to help. I can't even think of you respectfully." He took a quick sip. "What do you want?" The question seemed to startle the man out of his mounting anger. "What do you mean?" He looked at those at the table as if they'd have an answer for him. "You vanished years ago. I thought you'd been stolen from me. I waited for one of our enemies to make demands for your returns. Then I was filled with despair as I realized that maybe they just killed you and destroyed your body, so I'd never know." Okay, Then I was filled with despair as I realized that maybe they just killed you and killed you and destroyed your body, so I'd never know for certain what happened. What did you think I'd do the instant I found out you were alive, but a prisoner of the Adventurers Guild? Did you think I'd just let them turn you into feed for their dungeon?" There's almost no reason. If you hadn't talked with him only hours before, seen the anger in his eyes when talking about Jackal, or heard what the mysterious archer said, you could believe this was about rescuing his friend. "So this is what?" Jackal asked. "You bravely coming to my rescue?" "Of course. If they had no right to take you from him, from me." "Yeah, they had no right to take you from." Yeah. Actually, you know what? No. Sebastian is egocentric enough. Like he's not the most rational person. Well, no, that's not. He is rational, but he's he's egocentric. He's self-centered. Everything is about him. "Of course, they had no right to take you from me. I'm sure that." "Oh, cut it out!" Jekyll's exclamation only surprised Miss, who seemed taken in by the story. Carino had grown more suspicious the more Sebastian spoke. "You know, I wasn't taken. I ran away twice before I managed to lose myself in the city to the point the people you owned couldn't find me before I knew they were coming. Jack, don't you fucking finish that name." Jekyll started to snarl. "It's Jackal." Sebastian snorted, and Tibs saw through the act. For an instant, the disdain was clear. Then he was a concerned father again. "I'm hurt you think so little of me." Jekyll rolled his eyes. "Not even that much. I hadn't thought about you until I found out you were here, then did everything I could to drown those in ale. So feel free to be even more hurt. I can always dream it'll be enough you'll never want to see me again." "Why would you want me to ever feel that way towards you?" Sebastian asked, hurt. Jekyll's smile turned nasty. "Because I know how you deal with people you never want to see again. And I know how to deal with people coming at me with the intent to kill." Sebastian was still. The inn was silent, and he only now noticed. He was realized. "Son," Sebastian swallowed, seemed to search for words. "Son, I am sorry you ever felt I mistreated you. All I wanted was for you to be prepared for the future that awaited you." "You'll be happy to know I'm prepared then." Jekyll smiled warmly. "The guild trained me well for my future. From the dungeon. I even have a team and a attendant." "A team?" Sebastian smiled. "The one you lead?" It was malicious, and Jekyll froze. Irina tried to help. "He's a great leader." "You don't say." Sebastian's smile blossomed into an evil grin, puzzling her. Jekyll placed a hand on her arm and shook his head. "You've had your fun, father. The guild doesn't relinquish what it owns. It doesn't matter how much you threaten them, so you can go home and roll over those miscreants you enjoy so much. Sebastian looked surprised, but the grin only intensified. Leave? But I've only just found you again. You can't ask that I'll leave so soon. I mean, I only just paid for a nice little house by the nobles area, so I'd be close to you again, son. No. Jekyll's bravado broke with that whisper to Neil. No. He repeated more forcefully. You can't. His hand shook before he closed it into a fist. Sebastian sighed. The sound of a man admitting defeat. You, Jekyll, should know better than anyone that I most certainly can. Mez looked between the two, then stood, smoothing his expensive clothing. Sir, he said, his voice filled with respect, I think it's best if you leave. Sebastian looked at Mez as if he only now realized the archer was there, looked him over, studied what he wore, how differently he looked from the others at the table. At another table, Ian stood, then Aru at another one. As if they were a threat, two of the guards also stood, and on their swords. Joseph's father stepped to their table from the bar. Sir, he said, but with no more respect than he used for customers he liked. You're disrupting my customers' meal. I'd appreciate it if you left. If you'd leave. I'm sure that whatever you and Jekyll have to discuss can be resolved at a later time and elsewhere. Sebastian looked the innkeeper over, then smiled. Of course, my good man. He was all jovialty now. I'd never think of disrupting such a vital business. You have my apologies. Jekyll, I will seek you at a later time. Or, if you want to hurry this, you can find me at my new home. He took a coin and handed it to Joseph's father for the disruption. If saw enough of it as it changed hand to tell it was gold. Jekyll opened his mouth, but the two men were leaving in their respective directions. Joseph joined them. Are you okay? Is that really your father? Jekyll nodded and looked from one departing man to the other. Oh, I really wish your dad hadn't stepped in. It's what he does. He can't let things like this happen. It's not good for business. He smiled at Jekyll's worried expression. Don't worry. My dad's used to dealing with Mountain Sea City officials. Crow, your dad has no idea how vindictive my father is. He looked at his men intently. No one does. And this concludes chapter 25 of Stepping Up. If you are enjoying this, please leave a like, subscribe, hit the bell to know when the next one's going to be. If you want to read the story, book 1, you can find them on Royal Road for free. If you want to support me, read ahead of where I'm currently posting, or other stories, you can do that on my Patreon. And should you want to watch me do this live, you can do that on Twitch every Tuesday morning. I also write 5 days a week. With that, I wish you all a good day.